How's it going, folks? It's Gray 1951, and I'm here to do another response to another tag video. My friend Rob of Rob's Movie Collection has come up with another idea for a tag, and this is a really fun one. The question he's asking is of people in the movie community, what movie magazines or movie related magazines do you like to read and collect, or did you like to read, when you were younger? So this is a good one for me because when I was growing up in the 50s and 60s and started getting aware of horror films back in the very late 50s, and it sort of progressed from there when I would get a chance to see them on TV or go with my parents to see things like The House on Haunted Hill and The Tingler, movies like that. Well, I started becoming aware of a magazine called Famous Monsters of Filmland, which I would see on the newsstand at the grocery store whenever we would go shopping on Saturday morning. I would see this magazine with pictures of Vincent Price on the cover and just leaf through it. I couldn't buy it. I didn't have any money, and I was too shy to ask my parents to buy me this magazine. They wouldn't have done it anyway. So a couple of years down the road, maybe about 64, maybe 63, when I finally started getting an allowance, I started buying this magazine. So, of course, I didn't have every issue. I think it started, I believe Famous Monsters of Filmland started being published in 1961. I'm not sure. I'm not really sure. But that's about the time when I first started seeing it. And so when I started buying it, I collected as many as I could. I had a big stack of them for several years, and of course I didn't get the back issues. I may have sent away for some of the back issues every once in a while, but I didn't have a lot of money, so I really couldn't do it. I can't remember how much they cost back then. Probably 35 cents. That was pretty standard for a magazine. So I love these magazines a lot. And while I was collecting these, there were a couple of magazines from another publishing company that I also collected. One was called Mad Monsters, and the other was called Horror Monsters, and they were sort of a little less, intellectual or intelligent than Famous Monsters. They had a lot of humorous things in them, but they still had a lot of great photographs, and that's the main reason why I wanted to see them. Is just to look at the pictures, of all the great actors, Karloff and Lugosi and the Wolfman, the Mummy, and all the monsters. I mean, this stuff was just so cool to me. I just ate it up. I loved it. And there was another magazine as well called Castle of Frankenstein, which started coming out, I think, around 1961, maybe 1962. And I started buying those as well. And that was pretty much on the same intellectual level as Famous Monsters of Filmland. And I started collecting quite a few of those. So flash forward to, I think probably by the time I was getting out of high school, and I took all of my big collection of monster magazines and threw them away, trashed them. Didn't even give them away. I mean, who would want them? I just threw them all away. So stupid me. And flash forward many years later, I kind of, I mean, I always liked horror movies and all that sort of thing, but I did kind of get over the whole fascination with the Universal monsters and Barbara Steele and all this stuff for a little while, and then it started to sort of come back into my mind later on. Maybe in the 70s, I started thinking about this stuff a lot more. Um, well, in a way, that's not true about Barbara Steele. I was always interested in her, but I didn't see many of her films or know much about her for a long time, maybe up until the late 70s. But that's another video. Anyway, so now that I've discovered eBay and all this wonderful stuff on the internet, and I've started to sort of collect things again. And I don't have a lot of copies of Famous Monsters of Filmland, but I do have a couple. These are not the old ones. These are the ones that came out sometime in the 1980s or 1990s. So I did end up buying some of these again, and I didn't buy that many. And in fact, they brought this back a couple of years ago, and they're publishing it again. It doesn't it doesn't really look the same to me, and it doesn't have the same feeling. So I only ended up buying one, and it does have beautiful pictures and beautiful artwork. So I don't know. I'm not as crazy. I like the old Famous Monsters much more than I do the one that they have out now. But anyway, Castle of Frankenstein. I started buying these again, and I actually bought the very first issue from 1962, issue number 2, with Christopher Lee on the cover. This is issue number 4. I'm not sure why I didn't get issue number 3. Maybe I couldn't find it. This is one of the best ones they ever had. And I had this when I was a kid, and I can't believe I threw this away. Issue number 4, the special vampire issue with Bela Lugosi on the cover. It has Christopher Lee on the back, and it has a very intelligent review of Black Sunday. And then I also have a few more. I have issue number 5. Found all these on eBay, I think. Issue number 6. Number 8. And number 9. Okay, and that's where it stops. Now, I love having these. This is such a great magazine. I mean, it's almost it's almost kind of a, I don't know. It's really, the people who did this were almost like Trekkies. They were just such fanboys about monsters, about horror films. And the guy said the editor and publisher was Charles Foster Kane, right? Sure. The editor was Baron Victor Frankenstein III. Sure it was. No kidding. Yeah. But they had great photographs, just like Famous Monsters of Filmland. Great little film reviews. Really concentrated on the classic monsters of the Universal films, and plus a lot of newer stuff too. Obviously, they were covering Batman and the Joker. And I stopped, even back in the day, back in the 60s, I stopped buying these after a while. I'm not sure exactly how long this went on before it went out of business, but it was a very good magazine. Now, what's interesting is there was another magazine that came out, I think sometime in the 1990s or the 2000s. I didn't discover it until after it was out for a while, called Scary Monsters. Okay, Scary Monsters. And these have all black and white pictures, and you know, everything is black and white inside, but they have these beautiful color covers and the back covers as well. Aren't those cool? And they cover all the old monsters, and it just gives you that feeling of being back in the 60s, because that's what they're celebrating and that's what they're promoting. So I discovered Scary Monsters. They put out the Scary Monsters title. They also have, every once in a while, Monster Memories. Okay, check that out. Is that cool or what? Here you go. Monster Memories 1998 yearbook. More stuff on the back. And these have a lot of, it's loaded with ads in the back, just like they used to have in Famous Monsters, but even more. I mean, they have all these model kits you can buy, and back issues of magazines, magazines I never heard of, and it's just, they even have fiction, you know, comics, things like that. And I have a huge stack of these that I don't know how many I have, and I haven't even bought them all. Even during the time when I started buying them, I would not buy them all, and they're still putting it out. Okay. Here's a really good one. This has Christopher Lee on the cover. That's a great. In fact, I think the whole issue is, yeah, the whole issue is pretty much dedicated to Christopher Lee. Check that out. Okay. Now, Scary Monsters. The guy who publishes this is a guy named Dennis Druktenis. I think I'm pronouncing that correctly, but his name is spelled D-R-U-K-T-E-N-I-S. Dennis Druktenis. He actually brought back Castle of Frankenstein and started reprinting some of the old issues. And I bought a couple of those. I couldn't find them. I have them buried somewhere. And he was also reprinting a couple of issues of Horror Monsters and Mad Monsters. And I bought those too, and I couldn't find those either. So I don't know what that's about, but I've got stacks of magazines all over the house. It's a little bit sick, quite frankly. But okay, Scary Monsters, that's another good one. Also, I didn't have room on the table. I had to put these on the floor. There was another magazine that I discovered called Scarlet Street. And I'm not sure exactly what the dates were for this. 2001. So I probably discovered it around 2000, 1999. I'm not sure. Scarlet Street, a very interesting, well-written, kind of provocative horror film magazine. Very serious and with lots of good pictures, color, black and white, and so I bought quite a few of these as well. They write a lot about Karloff and Lugosi and all the Universal films. They write about the Hammer films. So now Scarlet Street had, I have no idea how many issues they had. I bought quite a few of them, but there were a lot of back issues that I never got around to buying. And then at some point, and I don't remember exactly when, this went out of business. I think the guy who was publishing it passed away. Don't remember his name. So a few years down the road, somebody who had been involved in Scarlet Street started publishing Scarlet, the film magazine. So it's pretty much like the original, although it doesn't have all the same people involved. But still, it's very, very good, well-written articles, great photographs. And this one is especially cool because on the back it had a full-page ad for Barbara Steele's terrific film Nightmare Castle, which had just been remastered. So they were advertising on the back, and good reason to have the magazine. So those are some of the magazines that I've collected and I still have. There's another one as well. Hang on. This one is called The Monster Bash, okay? The Monster Bash, which is put out by a website called creepyclassics.com, which is something all of you should know about, all of you should go to. Creepyclassics.com. They also celebrate the old horror films, and they have a convention every summer called the Monster Bash, which I've been to twice. I went in 2005, 2006, and I'm actually planning to go back next year, so we'll see how that works out. But yeah, they put out this magazine is really modeled after Famous Monsters of Filmland. Has a lot of great pictures. The articles are not necessarily all that insightful, but they're just a lot of fun. So the whole thing is geared toward making you feel like a kid again. They call it being a monster kid, right? Which is kind of a nice idea. So here you go. Crimson Ghost serial for the 1940s. Oh man, I love that. Revenge of the Creature. Check this out. Do you feel young yet? Here's Frankenstein. Here's the creature. Oh boy, I feel like a kid. I love it. Oh, the Bride of Frankenstein. She's back. Oh my God. And great artwork. Look at this. Look at this picture of the mummy. Is that great? And then Bela Lugosi. Wow. Love that stuff. Love it. And then there's more. Now, in 1991, about when I was beginning to discover that there were interesting magazines on the newsstand that made me feel young again, I happened to be walking past the newsstand one day and I saw this, Film Facts. And the reason why it caught my eye is because it had an interview with, or a profile of Barbara Steele, and I thought, I gotta have this. So I started buying this magazine. I have, several stacks of Film Facts. This came out in 1990, March of 1990, okay? Now, Film Facts covers a lot of stuff. They cover a lot of not only old horror films, but also science fiction. They cover radio programs. They interview people who were involved in films and serials, and a lot of cult figures and people that don't get attention from any other medium anywhere. You'll find them in Film Facts. Here's another interview with Barbara Steele, which caught my eye, and yet another one. Now, Film Facts, okay, they have this magazine. They also started putting out something called Ultra Film Facts, which is pretty much the same thing. I guess they just had so much to say, they found different ways to say it. And as if that weren't enough, they also put out another form of the magazine for a while called Outre, and they have several of those too. I didn't buy them all, and they cover pretty much everybody. Bela Lugosi, your favorite Frankenstein monster. And they also sell a lot of stuff. You can buy a lot of old movies, posters, T-shirts, magazines, just all kinds of things you can find by, leafing through this magazine. It is so much fun. And I think it comes out maybe 4 times a year, something like that. And it's wonderful. So as far as magazines that feature Barbara Steele, there are a whole bunch of them. And here's one that I don't think this comes out anymore, but I've got a few issues of it called Chiller Theater Magazine, with her great image from Black Sunday and a little bit of an interview. Here's one called The Dark Side, which I haven't seen too many issues of that. Another issue of Scarlet Street, one of the first that I bought, Black Sunday. Midnight Marquee. Another one has great artwork. Okay. There's one called Diabolique. That's a picture of her from Nightmare Castle. Let's see. And here's one called Rue Morgue, which is a fairly contemporary magazine. Well, they're still publishing it. I don't buy it very often, but I do buy it if I find something featuring Barbara. And this had a really good interview, so I did buy it. And Rue Morgue, for me, tends to go a little more toward the slasher type films and films that don't really capture my interest, so I don't buy too many issues of that. Which is also true of Fangoria, which is one of the horror film magazines that's been around for a long time. But I have bought a few issues of Fangoria that feature Barbara, such as this one. That was from 2013, very good interview with her. And this came out in 2015. This was the crowning jewel. This is beautiful artwork and a terrific interview. She's talking about her career, her life, where she's going now. And it also has a little bit of information about the last film that she made that came out a couple of years ago, Lost River, directed by Ryan Gosling. Okay. And finally, well, no, it's not finally, because I have a few more to show you here, but there's another terrific magazine that's really very intellectual. It's called Video Watchdog. And I'm not sure how long this has been coming out either, but I started buying them in the 1990s, and it still comes out a few times a year, maybe 4 times a year, I'm not sure. And it's a smaller magazine, like a digest. And this one, they cover everything. They cover old films, reissues, remastered Blu-rays, and all that sort of thing. And they also talk about modern films. This one has Price and Karloff on the cover, and it also has The Babadook. So it covers pretty much everything. Here's Vincent from something. I'm not sure what that's from. I don't know. And Video Watchdog also has featured Barbara Steele in some of its magazines. This one came out in 1991, and this one came out in, well, several years later. It's all about the film The Horrible Dr. Hitchcock. Okay, how it was made. Beautiful picture of her on the back. All right, so that's a little bit of what I like to collect, and there are some other magazines that I buy whenever I can find them. There's one called Shock Cinema, which is basically, oh, check this out, picture from I Spit on Your Grave. I know you all like that one. Anyway, this is a film, this is a magazine that takes, it does interviews with a lot of actors and actresses in low-budget cult films, television. This one has an interview with actor Clint Walker, who was a big Western TV star back in the 50s and 60s. It also has a lot of film reviews of things that are being remastered on Blu-ray and DVD, things that you may not hear about in, in other places and other areas. You're not going to see them on the shelves at Best Buy, you're probably going to have to send away for them. But this will tell you all about them and alert you that they're being remastered. And there's another. Let's see. I'm getting all mixed up here, folks. And there's another one that's very similar to Shock Cinema. This is called Videoscope, and it's pretty much the same thing. And you can find a lot of really well-written film reviews and interviews with people from low-budget films, as well as information about new films. Okay. So let's see. A lot of information about websites you can go to find movies, find information about actors, directors, all kinds of cool things. And another magazine that I like to buy, which is not necessarily about horror films, but it's just about old Hollywood in general. It's called Films of the Golden Age. Okay? And this comes out about 4 times a year. I used to subscribe to this, and I really need to start doing it again. It has articles about actors and actresses, some famous people, as well as people who were, in B films and stuff like that. People who didn't have a long career that you may not hear about anywhere else. And they have a lot of great photographs, old photographs of actors, reviews of films, interviews with people who may have known some of these people. And I think this is put out by the same people. They used to put out a newspaper form publication called Classics Illustrators, something like that. Classic Films Illustrated or something. I used to buy a lot of those. My memory's getting really bad here. This is interesting because it has a lot of information about the silent film actress Louise Brooks. Sounds a favorite of mine. And there are also a lot of ads, things that you can buy, very obscure films that you may not be able to find anywhere else. So here's an issue of Films of the Golden Age that has a Universal B horror film, The Frozen Ghost. So a lot of cool stuff. And there was another magazine as well that I think they stopped publishing. I haven't seen it for a long time, called Cult Movies. And here's an advertisement for one of the Monster Bash conventions, 1999. Cult Movies also had a lot of things about the movies of the Golden Age, Karloff and Lugosi. A lot of very well written articles. Okay, Cult Movies. The Mummy's Ghost. And here you go for all you Psycho fans. Check this out. All right, Vincent Price. And there are some other magazines that are around today. One that you might find on the newsstand is Horror Hound, which I buy every once in a while. I'm pretty sure this is related to the Horror Hound conventions that come out a couple of times a year at different places. But they have a lot of interesting stuff in here. They have a lot of people showing their collections and photographs of people at conventions and stuff like that. But it also has a lot of stuff you can buy. They talk about mainly modern horror films, but they do cover some of the old stuff as well. And have a few more issues of Rue Morgue that I have bought. There was another one that came out for a while called Ciné Fantastique, which is pretty much like Film Facts. I don't know if it was put out by the same people. Another one you might find is Scream. This is actually pretty good. I like this. They have some good stuff in this one. Here's another copy or another issue of Diabolique. It's all about Christopher Lee. And on the back they have this, which is pretty disgusting. Now, I found this, I sent for this recently. This is called Freaky Monsters, okay? Very much like Famous Monsters of Filmland. And the reason for that is, it's put out by a guy named Ray Ferry, okay? That's F-E-R-R-Y, Ray Ferry. Now, Okay, the Famous Monsters of Filmland magazine, most of you who know about it know that it was put out by a guy named Forrest J. Ackerman. He was probably one of the biggest proponents of horror films and science fiction films back in the day, and he was just like an iconic figure. I actually saw him at one of the Monster Bash conventions. I think it was the first one I went to, and I watched him on stage, and on the last day of the convention, he was walking past me, and he just kind of looked at me, and I was just frozen. It's like God had just walked by. It was really, I was too shy to talk to him. Anyway, the man has since passed away, but he published Famous Monsters for a very long time, and at some point, I guess he fell into financial problems, or I'm not sure exactly what happened, but this guy named Ray Ferry was started helping him publish the magazine, and something happened between these two people, and the magazine basically was taken away from Forey, and it was given to Mr. Ferry. So a lot of people hate this guy and probably would never buy this magazine. But I recently sent away for this, it was free, and I actually like it. I don't know what all the details were of that big falling out that they had, but I don't know. I think this is kind of a cool magazine. So anyway, there's also another one. This is called Scream. And I think I'm almost done here. Scream. And that was kind of fun too. Has a lot about the old stuff. So I've got magazines all over the house, mostly in the TV room in about 5 or 6 stacks, but I have them in the living room as well. And there was also a magazine that I bought a couple of issues of called Shivers. I think that was a British magazine. And I have this poster, this cover that they have here. They made a full-page poster. Take a look at this. Pretty much every horror star in the history of Universal and Hammer, and a few people who came later, like Brad Pitt from Interview with the Vampire. It's got pretty much everybody, and that is, I can't believe I never hung that poster up, and I'm very glad that I kept it. So anyway, all right, like I said, I got magazines everywhere, and I refuse to get rid of them. I've gotten rid of some of them, but well, I don't know. I'm trying to buy my childhood back or something like that. So anyway, let me know what you think, and I would love to see anybody else. I'm going to tag everybody, starting out specifically with Mayo's Marquee. Joe, I know you are very much interested in the old horror films, and I'd like to know if you have any of these magazines or if you have any interest. So okay, that's it. Thanks for watching.